We are in a wonderful point in time. The American manufacturing renaissance is at a wonderful inflection point. It's about to come. We're about to turn the corner, and good things are going to happen, and American manufacturing is going to thrive in our country. This is a good thing for all of us because it's going to help all the missions that you're trying to work on, which is turning around communities that are hurting. The best way to do that is with jobs, middle-class jobs, and that's what manufacturing offers. The average manufacturing employee is paid $77,000 a year. So I believe we're at a very unique point in time where we're going to see the kick-up. And we're going to talk today about 11 ways that we've identified to help accelerate the kick-up so that your community can thrive and progress faster. You're doing good things. My city, I love my city, Baltimore, had some very, very bad experiences recently. It's terrible. It kills me. I love my city. But I think this is closely correlated to the fact that manufacturing has evaporated or reduced in my town. And I think if we could get it to rejuvenate, we'll create these middle-class jobs so places like Sandtown won't have 25% unemployment. It'll have 4% unemployment like the rest of the state. So today we're going to talk about what are easy strategies that you could talk with your community about so that they can have an increase, they can have a thriving economy, they could bootstrap people up into the middle class. I believe that jobs are going to come back from China, not every one of them. Jobs are going to come back from Asia, and it'll start a momentum, and we're going to see a nice uptick. So let's go to the first slide, please. The basic thesis, the key point is when you think about employees, you cannot think about them as a variable cost. What is a variable cost? What is a fixed cost? A fixed cost is like rent. A fixed cost is like your mortgage payment. A fixed cost is like a payment for one of your pieces of machinery. You're going to make that payment no matter what. You have to look at all of your employees like they're fixed costs. You don't just kick them in and out as times go. You have to look at them as forever kind of people. They're your partners. They're in it with you for the long term. You have to think of them like in a 30-year horizon. If you think of them in a 30-year horizon, they'll read that signal from you, and they'll be more dedicated. They'll be more engaged. So there's two books that I've read that inspired me to think this way. The first one was the Toyota Production System, and the person that wrote it was named Shigeo Shingo. And my favorite line out of this book talks about how to increase the labor productivity. You do it through improving work methods, but also increasing worker motivation and involvement. It doesn't matter how much you do with robots and automation. That's secondary. The key is increasing the motivation, increasing their involvement. We are believers in what's happening with Toyota. They use this system throughout their processes and throughout their strategies. They don't have layoffs. And that engages the employees so they're more motivated, more involved in staying with the company and doing whatever it takes to stay with the company. I've had the honor of doing work with Toyota. They're one of our biggest customers, and I've met personally with the CEO of Toyota, the founder of the Prius. Another person that I've taken inspiration from is Eli Goldratt, and he wrote a book called The Goal. And these are two books that if you have any manufacturing entities that you work closely with, you should recommend to them. Because this sets the tone, the theme of how people should interact with their employees. And Eli stressed, people are not predictable. If people are not predictable, there's no basis for society. His thrust was, if the employee doesn't really know what you're thinking, then they're not going to be engaged. They're not going to be dedicated to you. They're always going to be wondering what's the ulterior motive there. And the key point is that you have to focus on the people. It's not the equipment, it's not the material, it's not how good the material is, it's the people. And if you have a downturn, excess capacity must be used to grow the business because you're trying to build this loyalty that it's a two-way street. So these two books are very inspirational to me and critical to how we think at Marlin and how I think companies should think so they can take advantage of growing fast and getting employees really on board with your program. So let's scroll back a second. I bought the company in 1998. The company was actually established in 1968. And when I bought the company, it was right out of a Charles Dickens novel. Two guys didn't have eyes. Several guys did not have fingers, okay? Very unsafe working conditions. It was dirty, it was smoky, everything was repetitive. Every bend was done by hand, one at a time. Carpal tunnel syndrome city was my factory. And everybody was low-paid, minimum wage employees. The health insurance plan was you go to the emergency room. The retirement plan was Social Security. There was no retirement plan. It was a very different company. That's what I bought. However, it was profitable. However, it was the biggest bagel basket manufacturer in America. It was good business. Things were going well. And I said, you know, we're just going to invest, automate, we'll do some good things and improve the company. I didn't realize two terrible things were coming. But right at that moment, I was enjoying a fad. Okay, and I didn't realize it. Everybody started eating bagels. Bagels used to be only eaten by Jewish people, but now it was becoming widespread, appreciated, and accepted. And people in Akron, Ohio were eating them, and people in Duluth. All of a sudden, so they were opening up these bagel shops all over the place. It was exploding. We enjoyed that. And we were making bagel baskets faster than you could imagine. Life was good. I thought we were peachy, and everything was going to be perfect in my life. It was going to be, I had the Midas touch. I was so wrong. So, mind you, my newest piece of technology at this point was a fax machine. I had just, that was from, we're talking about 1998 here. And again, every bend was done by hand. If we got a reorder, we would say to clients, by the way, can you send me back the basket so I can measure it? Because we didn't take any kind of measurements, okay, of the basket. That was the company I bought. No engineering prints, etc. So what happened next was the Atkins diet. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Atkins diet. The Atkins diet is a diet where you're not allowed to eat carbohydrates. What is the world's biggest carbohydrate? A bagel. So immediately, everybody stopped eating bagels. And it was devastating. All my clients started going bankrupt or going under. For sure, they didn't need to buy any more bagel baskets. So everything dried up. Simultaneously, Asian companies started importing bagel baskets into Manhattan cheaper than I could buy steel. I mean, that's not a tenable business proposition. So kind of keep this in context, we were selling bagel baskets for about 12 bucks a throw, the Einstein bagels, Manhattan bagels, Brew Bagels, etc. 12 bucks a throw. We were paying $7 for the steel, right? So we were living off that 5 bucks. They were bringing in bagel baskets, Chinese bagel baskets were coming in for less than 6 bucks. Like $4.50, $5.50. Okay. So all these companies were having tough times because nobody's buying any bagel baskets, or nobody's buying bagels. They're going with cheaper alternatives. And you got to remember, my clients, they didn't own a tape measure, right? I mean, to them, a good quality bagel basket was if the bagel doesn't fall out, that's a success, right? So there was no level of precision. They could take a commodity, if it's off by a quarter of an inch, half inch, they wouldn't even know. They didn't own a tape measure. So what happened was devastation. We started losing money hand over fist. Sales went down, profits plummeted, profits became negative, we were hemorrhaging cash. It was awful. We were sucking wind, and we really had two choices. Choice one was become extinct, like so many American manufacturers, right? That's a typical, or many factories took that path. Or we could transform. The problem is nobody sends you an email or phone calls you and says, oh, by the way, this is how you transform. I got this old antiquated equipment. I got, 100% of my clients are bagel shops. I mean, there was not a clear path to get the heck out of this terrible situation we were in. Right around this time, I got a fortuitous phone call from an engineer at Boeing. And he said, I need a basket about this big and about this wide, and I just need a handful of them. So I said to myself, this is going to be such a pain. Why? Because Einstein Bagels buys 1,000 at a time, 2,000 bagel baskets at a time. This guy wanted 20 or 24 or something. So I said to myself, well, I'm going to have to charge it 20 bucks. And the guy goes, yeah, whatever. That was the epiphany. That was the epiphany. Now, mind you, this Boeing engineer is making a $70 million airplane. So whether my bagel basket or basket costs 20 bucks or 22 bucks, it's a rounding error on a $70 million airplane. So this was the epiphany. I realized at that moment, this is how I could save the company. We're going to focus on customized or engineered baskets that are high quality, and I'm going to ship them fast. If I can do those three things, by the way, these are three things China can't do, right? Highly engineered, high quality, fast delivery, then we're going to whoop them, and we're going to survive, and we're going to transform. Problem is, 99.99% of my clients are bagel shops. So we had to do a major transformation, and this is what happened over the next couple years. And in doing so, we had to upgrade our talent, upgrade our skills. Because in the old days, you know, if you hand bend a wire and it's off by 1/4 of an inch, the bagel shop guy will never know. Boeing will notice, right? They'll notice. So you got to up your game. Well, that means I had to get new technology, and I had to train my talent. I had to really upgrade everything, not only the equipment, but also the people. So fast forward, now we export to 39 countries. When I first bought the company, you know, we were in Brooklyn, New York, and export to me was the Bronx, right? Now we're exporting to Mexico is our biggest export. Canada's number 2, okay? But we do a lot into Asia. And my favorite is we export now to China. How cool is that? You know, is that neat? So it's steel mill from Illinois, Chicago-made robot, and American employees, American engineers, Baltimore City engineers exporting this to China. So today we're going to talk about 11 techniques that I encourage you to consider when you talk with your clients about how to turn around that local factory so that they could grow. Because if we can turn around more factories, we're going to help ignite this American manufacturing renaissance. So, number 1, cash bonuses, okay? You want your employees to be entrepreneurs, to be shopkeepers. You want them to have skin in the game. You know, most factories you walk into, there's the jefe, the number 1 guy, the boss, and then everybody else is a blue-collar worker. They can't wait until they punch the clock to get the heck out of there, right? You have to change that paradigm. How do you do that? I recommend with cash bonuses, and you give them explicit targets, black and white targets, not mushy targets, what you have to do in a 2-week period. In our case, 2-week period. It could be 1 week. They don't have 1-year horizons. They're not thinking 1 year. They're thinking paycheck to paycheck, right? They're thinking about Jimmy's braces. They're thinking about their car payment, their rent payment. They need instant gratification or 2-week gratification. So I recommend having a cash bonus where you pay them every 2 weeks based on a black and white target. You know, you're going to make X number of baskets in a 2-week period of time. If you do that, you get cash. And it has to be big cash. It can't be little cash. It can't be, you know, here's a $25 gift certificate at Bennigan's. Okay, we have employees. You know, a lot of companies do that. I mean, I've heard of some large S&P 500 companies when they get a patent, they give their employees a $25 check. I mean, what are they thinking? So here at Marlin, we give our employees anywhere, depending on the cell, between $150 and $900 for 2 weeks worth of work. This is blue-collar employees, right? But they're fired up. They're there. They're in the moment. Right? They're not, you know, we don't have to, what's happened is we don't have to have that middle level of management that walks around with a clipboard that wags their finger, okay? Most companies have that employee or have a whole series of those employees. We got rid of them. We don't need them anymore. Why? Well, because we have tigers on the factory floor that are killing it, trying to make their number, right? Because they really are focused on pushing out that many baskets a week or every 2 weeks. So we were able to save the money from that mid-level management and give more money to the line workers because that's where the action's happening. Also, you should do it in micro cells. You should not have it company-wide. A lot of times, big companies, or they'll say, listen, if our revenue goes up, 1% this year, or, then we'll give you 0.5% or 0.25% of your salary or whatever. It's just too, they can't control it. You have to make it very micro in their particular cell. So, for example, we have a laser cell that has to ship out every 2 weeks $70,000. If they ship out every 2 weeks $70,000, they get $900. Okay? So it's a very explicit target, and it's 2 guys. It's not 50 guys. It's not 1,000 guys. It's just 2 guys. So those guys know their partner and them, they have to push out a certain amount of dollars, and by keeping it micro, 2 guys in the trenches, they can make it happen. Number 2, training. I am a big believer in training. Training is critical. And again, remember, if you know that the employee is going to be with you for 30 years, you're more willing to train them, to quote-unquote over-invest in them. Send them, in our case, we have a laser that was made in Connecticut. So we send the team, the laser team, to Connecticut for a week. Then we send them again a couple weeks later for another week for advanced laser training, right? And then we send them for a 3rd week for PMI, or preventive maintenance inspections, okay? So this keeps the laser running much better than my competitors, has much more on time. It has much less scrap, it breaks less often. All these things happen because we train. That's really good. How much do we train? 5% of the direct labor of our employees. By the way, there's a person in this room who is a mentor of mine who I've gotten a lot of great ideas over the time, and I want to give a hats off to him. His name is Eric Ajax. So is he, there's bright lights so I can't see him. Eric Ajax is sitting right over there. And he was the first person to talk to me about 5% as the right target. So we've incorporated that, and hats off to Eric. Thank you for that good wisdom and insight. Anyway, it's proven to be very good for us, because what happens is by training our employees so much, they master the machine. Also, when they're talking on the phone with clients, right, they sound so professional. They sound so knowledgeable. Why? Because they really are. They've been trained like nobody else in the world. And they can make that machine do things that nobody else can imagine, because most other companies cheap out and they don't spend money on the training. They'll get the fancy machine, but they won't do the training. I think that's short-sighted. And by spending 5%, you're going to have a better situation, a better success rate. Now, mind you, when I talk training, I'm not talking about like sending them for pottery class or music class. I'm talking about meaty stuff that's germane to Marlin and what we consider quality engineered quick. And when I say we pay, I mean we really pay 100%. Okay? This is for vendor training, like we talked about the laser, but also things like, if you want to go back and get your AA degree, or if you want to get a college degree, or even if you want to get a master's degree. Right now we have one of our employees getting her master's degree in industrial psychology. She wants to be in charge of our HR. We have another person getting their AA degree on their way ultimately to become an engineer. So this is the kind of thing we spend money on, and I'm talking about all books, everything. We want to have 100% pay to motivate them to do this. It's like golden handcuffs in a sense, because I'm willing to pay for your master's. Well, I'm going to get this great talent to work for me for years and years and years, because she knows I'm paying for her master's. It's a win-win for both of us. They got to get B's or better, by the way. Now, just so you know, Mark in the room said, the people are going to ask, what are roadblocks with this? And that was a good point. And he said everybody in the room is going to be thinking, what are roadblocks to the training? So I thought we should incorporate that so I can nip some questions that you might be thinking about. So we pay people when they're being trained, right? A lot of companies will say you don't get paid while we're training, you're not making anything. Well, we reject that. We pay them while they're getting trained. We find that sometimes vendor training is better, and sometimes internal training is better. Sometimes community college is better. It's really a mix. It's a blend. It depends. Like the local community college may not have the best laser program because they don't have our laser. So in that case, we'll send them to Connecticut to learn the laser. However, with other matters, we'll fly a company in and they'll teach us like how to do welding on site here at our factory. So I wanted to incorporate those good questions from Mark. Number 3, you got to pay well. You get what you can't shortchange. People are focused on compensation. They should be. You know, you get what you pay for. And we've talked about the cash bonuses. We've talked about you got to have them, you think of them as a fixed cost. These are going to be people that you're going to keep, you're hoping, forever, for 30 years. You want them to retire with you. I think the best way I've heard it was through Nucor. They're a very well-run organization. They make steel. They're in Indiana. They're in a couple other states as well. And they have a policy or procedure of the way they think is they hire 5 talented people. They pay them like 8, but they're expecting them to produce like 10. So that's the philosophy we take. So I have a competitor, we're in Baltimore, I have a competitor that does wire stuff. They pay half as much as I do, half, right? Well, who's got better talent? You know, who's got people that are more engaged? Who's got, when Toyota has a problem or an issue, who's going to cover their back? Definitely my employee. He's going to work all he can, he or she, to make sure they're happy. If you're paid half as much, you know, you're going to feel it, and you're not going to give it your all. Now, the conventional, number 4, the conventional thesis about automation is that it puts your employees on steroids. It makes them much more productive, much more effective. All true. And these are good things. You know, automation doesn't get tired, automation doesn't go to the bathroom. These are all good things that make a factory more productive and more likely to thrive. However, there's some other elements of automation that's critical. That's safety. Safety is so important. And by having more automation and more robotics, your employee is more likely to be safe because they're outside the cage and the robot doing the nasty stuff is inside the cage. The robot's doing the repetitive stuff. The robot's doing the carpal tunnel syndrome stuff. The robot's doing the boring stuff. The robot is more likely to be the one that gets dirty and nasty. Number 5, the skills matrix. We talked about this a little bit in the video, and this might be the most important thing that I hope you can share with the people you work with. So we have a skills matrix, and you can see with the little red dot, it's in our lunchroom. This is what it looks like right there. And what it is a wonderful document because it's transparent. It shows exactly what we perceive of our employees. This is in the lunchroom, right? There's no mystery here of how we think about employees. And on the top of this skills matrix right here, it's hard to see, is all my employees' names. Okay? And over here on all the rows, in the red dot you see, are all the different skills. Setting up a laser, setting up a press brake, setting up a punch. All meaty tasks. Preventive maintenance on a punch, preventive maintenance on a laser, etc. And what we do is if you know how to do one of these things, we give you 1 point for simple tasks. If you know something hard, you'll get 2 points. If you know something really hard, 3 points. And if you know something extraordinarily hard, 4 points. And if you learn something, you get more money because you're more valuable to me. And I want to encourage you to learn more and more things. And remember, I'm paying you to get during the training session. The neat thing about this is, along this row right here are meaty things that we care about, skills that we care about. Nowhere on that list does it say, played golf with owner, right? Nowhere on that list does it say, had beer with plant manager. Okay? A lot of people think the way you move up the chain is by, you know, schmoozing the right person, right? We reject that. We want to be a meritocracy. We want to be transparent. We're trying to share with the people, if you take care of these skills right here, you're going to grow with our company. It shows which employees are complacent, they may have a very low number, and which employees are killing it to get cross-trained. By the way, you could also tell who's the most highly paid person in our factory. It's very easy to see because it's right there in the lunchroom. Everybody can see it all the time. So this is a really good tool to motivate employees to learn more. You're showing them what you care about, and you're showing them the path so that they can grow, thrive, and succeed. We talked about raises for new skills. This is number 6. This will increase the capacity of your factory. You'll be able to make more things because your employees are more nimble. They can go from one machine to the next. They can learn the laser, the punch, so that if we get buried with laser work, that's okay. I have so many people cross-trained on laser work, we can pivot more people over there. This also will reduce the chance that you'll ever say no to a client, I can't ship on time. And it's also more interesting for the employee because they know more things about more parts of the business. It's rather than doing the same drudgery every single day, it keeps it more interesting brain-wise. Hiring, number 7, this is key. You got to be very picky. It's the most important thing you do as an owner of a company or as a manager of a company, as a general manager of a company. You got to focus on people that you want literally to be with them for 30 years until they retire. You want them to be exceptional. By the way, we use a personality test. We've seen that to be very good predictor of long-term success at our company. What we've done is this personality test, we've given it to all of our rock stars, and we've identified what are attributes in their personality that are a pattern. And then when we interview new people, we give them this test, and we see which people correlate. And that's a good predictor for us. I recommend that tool for you. Another thing that I recommend is take the new prospective person out on the factory floor, walk them around the factory floor, show them what they're going to be doing so that there's no mystery. You know, it's not like they're just meeting you in the office. They're not seeing exactly what you're going to do. I think that, and actually encourage that for any kind of company or any kind of entity. Take them to the avocation and show them explicitly, you'll be doing this. Show them the desks, show them their office, show them where they're going to be. I have a strategy of hiring fast, firing fast. What does that mean? Hire fast when business starts picking up, ramping up, hire people, get them in there, make that client happy. The reason why is because hopefully then your company, the companies that are buying from you will be impressed with you and they'll give you more business. Sometimes, however, though, you make mistakes. Even if you're picky, sometimes boo-boos happen. And you have somebody that's not a good match for the team. I recommend parting ways quickly. They're probably not enjoying it. They're probably not engaged in liking the experience themselves. We talked briefly about safety before. Safety is the most important thing we do at Marlin. And again, I have to tip my hat off to Eric. He was so kind and let me stay with him for a full day where he taught me a lot of good ideas about safety. We've gone 2,000, this is a little out of date right here. This is from October 2014. We've gone 2,365 plus days, 375 days without a safety incident. 2,375 days. We're so very proud of that, and that's the most important thing we focus on. That sends such a signal to your employees that you care about their well-being. A lot of companies kind of blow off safety. You can't. It's got to be a top focus of your endeavors. And the way we do that is we have a safety committee that's very empowered. They meet monthly. They can impose anything they want to improve the lot of our employees. We actually invite OSHA in, and we use them as a partner to give us suggestions on how we can up our game. And we've become sharp. There's only 5 companies in the state of Maryland that are sharp. It's a distinction through OSHA. We actually got it 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it means that OSHA looks at us as having such good procedures and processes that they actually cannot, we're one of 5 companies, they cannot do a inspection on us. They cannot do a surprise inspection on us. We're only one of 5 companies in the state of Maryland that have that. But that's because we have so many processes in place. But this is the kind of thing that's good for employees to see, that you aspire to be sharp. You care about these things, and you care about their well-being. People like to work for companies where they're focused on safety. Another thing that people like is steady order. What do I mean by that? Every day you do it by the same process. It's not, okay, today we're doing it this way, tomorrow we're doing it that way. People like to have a very nice, steady regimen. And standard operating procedures, and in our case ISO, has been a very good way to give comfort to employees so they know what the process is step by step. It's not a mystery, and they're better able to do their job because there's a regimented step-by-step process of how to do their job. Another important facet is be transparent. It's so unusual. Most people, when they talk with other people, they have lies of omission. And it's so important that you talk frankly, straightforward, candid. It's refreshing. People may not like what you're saying, but they'll be impressed that you're telling them something they may not want to hear. But the fact that you're going belly to belly with them and letting them know face to face, hey, we got an issue, we got to address this, we got to fix this, we got some bad news. Proactively doing that is so unusual, so atypical, it'll improve your trust, and it'll improve their dedication and their engagement with you, because they know you're not going to beat around the bush. You're going to tell them what is something that's bothering them or you, and getting to the bottom of it right away. So Mark said, people are going to ask, how has this training program been effective to your team? Well, for our case, it's been proven to be very effective. We've had fast growth, and we've had a very safe environment. And the impact for training for us has been wonderful. Matter of fact, this year, we're going to be expanding our factory floor space 53%, and we're going to be increasing our power over 600%, because we're bringing in new automation and new talent to run that automation. As Barbara mentioned, we've won a couple of awards. We're very proud of that, but I think it's just a signal that we've got a great team, and they're doing wonderful things together, pushing us forward. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. Thank you. Thank you. So, was there any questions? I'd be happy to, please. Yes. Sure. So it's a company out of Minnesota that we use called Polaris, P-O-L-A-R-I-S, Polaris Profiles. I have a fellow named Tom Mays I work with. I'll be happy to give you his email address if you give me your business card before you leave today. It's a brilliant program, because what you do is you have one for, let's say, your engineers. You have a separate program for the guys that set up the robots. You have another one for the direct line employees. You have another one for the salespeople. So it's catered to each zone. And that way you get much better, you have a better chance of being successful in hiring people. It's so hard to hire good people. Great question. Please. That's a great point, and that's a negative, that there's an administrative element to this. So we try to keep it very simple as possible. So I mentioned the laser cell before. So they have to get 70 grand in 2 weeks, these two guys, right? So at the beginning of the 2 weeks, we say, here's this, here's the $95,000 in the bucket, push 70 of this out. So we give them we give them a bucket of what to work on. Now sometimes they won't ship 70, they'll ship 80. Well, then they'll get $1,000. Okay? So what happens is they have more skin in the game to keep on pushing. I mean, so many companies have a person with a clipboard that says, you're going to the bathroom too much, or you're talking about the Ravens too much, or you're talking about the Orioles too much, right? And it's so corrosive. And we're treating people like adults. We're treating people like professionals. But it's because they want to hit their numbers so badly, since the bonus check is so huge. What I realized was that I'm not their real boss. I realized this after we started doing the bonus check, because what happened was the employee's not the only one that sees this pay stub. Right? The real boss sees the pay stub. And the spouse sees that huge check and says, what are you doing? Why didn't you hit your numbers this week? Right? I'm not the boss. That's the boss. The spouse is the boss. So, what happens is these checks are so big that people all of a sudden shift their budget up. And all of a sudden they'll get a boat, or they'll get a second car, or they'll do this or that. And people literally change their lifestyles. They'll buy a house or something, which is wonderful, right? This is what it's all about, right? But they get really engaged. And again, they're like a shopkeeper. They're an entrepreneur. So it's not just me and my employees that are blue collar punching a clock. It's me and a bunch of entrepreneurs that work. We're all in this together. I just give them the steel and the robot. They take it from there. Please. For fatigue. Well, we're sensitive to giving them a target that's not attainable. That's a great point. I mean, if I were to say $700,000, not 70, right? It's demotivating, right? The employee's like, you're trying to rook me. What are you pulling a fast one? So over the last, we do it every 2 weeks, so over the last 26 pay periods, the average cell hit it 14 times, okay? Hector, one of our cells, you saw Hector on the video. He's from the Dominican Republic, he's an immigrant. He's hit it 20 out of the 24 times. He's a machine. I mean, he works so hard and he gives it his all. He's hit it 20 out of 24 times. We have other employees that have hit it 8 times. Now, the question here is 8. What's going on? Is it the employee? Is the equipment defective? Is the target too high? So this is something we're grappling with. I mean, we're addressing that. And, you know, it's never perfect, but it's very motivational. We have a lot of people really, but, you know, we're always looking to see, you know, is it because the machine's defective or breaking, or is it too hard to target, or is it because the person's talking about the Ravens too much and the Royals too much? So we study that. That's a great point. Please.
How many people do you have now, and how many people will you have after your expansion?
How many people we have now after the expansion, you said? Yeah. So we have today approximately 30 employees, and we're ultimately going to have, in a year or so, ballpark 45. The average American factory, people don't know this, has between 15 and 20 employees. It's stunning. I mean, the average American factory is little peanut companies. That's American manufacturing. Please.
I was curious, we had a session just prior to this on hiring formerly incarcerated people. So could you talk about your policies and practices around that?
I have a very good friend of mine that runs a factory in Baltimore City called Danco, D-A-N-K-O, and they're a foundry. And they have been unbelievably successful with that program, with taking in people needing a second chance. And again, my friend Eric Ajax, I know, has had great success with this technique. We have not pursued that, and this is something we should consider. And that's something we should consider. We have not pursued it yet. That's something that we should consider. Great question. I know people have done it, and it's proven to be successful for them. Please.
You talk about your hiring process and how picky you are. Have you ever hired out of community-based training programs that kind of create a pipeline of skilled workers fit to the industry that you're in?
Yes. We are big believers in that. There's an entity near here in Baltimore called JARC, and it used to be called the Magna program. So we're big believers in that. Matter of fact, JARC was in our factory today, this afternoon. There's a new management team, and they were introducing themselves. So we're big believers in that, and it's a great talent pool.
For those of us who are doing industry partnerships in manufacturing, what would you recommend are the top priorities for people coming out of that program? What are the things you're looking for the most in them? The most important thing actually is a good work ethic, the earnestness, by far. I mean, having an interest in getting up every morning, being there on time, being diligent, being meticulous, that by far, the personality element is the most important thing. Because I can train virtually anybody. Now, that being said, if they know what a radii is, if they know what a diameter is, if they know what a tangent is, those things will be helpful, and we can get them on the ground faster on more impressive, more expensive machines. But in general, the work ethic and the personality, the character traits are really important for us. Great question. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.